Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Well, welcome to the podcast. How's it going?
It is going well. Thank you, Elijah.
Yeah, happy to have you here. A big YouTube influencer like you. You want to give a quick introduction about yourself, who you are, what you're doing in life?
Sure. So I am an entrepreneur. I'm an engineer. I started a company many years ago. Just actually finished with that company after about 9.5 years. And yeah, now I'm doing YouTube full time and talking about artificial intelligence, everything from tutorials to research paper reviews, AI news. So yeah, just fun stuff. I know there's a whole wave of AI stuff out there, and I'm trying to cover as much of it as I can.
So, let's just jump in because AI is obviously all that we care about these days, right? Like that's everything that's going on in the world. So, given the fact that you are doing YouTube videos about them and you're researching it kind of full time, what's the most exciting thing that you've come across? Like, what's the most interesting, coolest, like game changing concept or idea or technology or GPT model that you've come across?
So I think there's two things. One, I'm really excited about open source models and how fast that they're evolving. I really didn't expect it. Just a few months ago, the Llama model was released, and then the weights were leaked. And since then, there's been so many different awesome open source models that you can run with a CPU on your computer at home, no internet connection required, fully private, and they're quite good, comparable to GPT 3.5. So I'm really excited for that. I love competition, both from like the fully hosted local large language models, or excuse me, the fully hosted large language models, the open source models, everything. And then the second thing is autonomous agents. So Auto GPT was an example of that, basically having agents that can work together, that can operate on their own with very little or no human input. So there was a research paper about autonomous agents in a video game world. There was just another paper released a couple of days ago where they put autonomous agents in Minecraft. So those are two specific areas that I'm personally very excited about right now.
So, autonomous agents, let's like dive into that. Yeah. You and I have talked a lot about them as well. Maybe just
Yes.
start with like a quick description for people who maybe haven't gone as deep down the rabbit hole as you and I have. What does an autonomous agent actually do? Like what does that fully mean? And then also, why is it so compelling and exciting for you?
Yeah, so there was a paper out of, I believe it was Google and Stanford, and they detailed where they put 25 autonomous agents in a simulated world and let them live their lives. And what an autonomous agent is really it's just an artificial intelligence that can operate, learn, form relationships on their own. And so they put 25 of these autonomous agents in a world, in a simulated kind of video game environment, and they started exhibiting human behavior. So that is incredibly interesting. And so then with Minecraft, they kind of did the same thing. Less so having them interact with other agents, but more so having an autonomous agent learn and explore, mine, build, all from ChatGPT prompts. And so that's why it's particularly exciting.
So let me play devil's advocate here. I was telling my mom about the simulacra paper, right, from Stanford, from Google, and just talking about the concepts of it. And basically, what you're doing is you are building free thinking is not the right word, but simulating things that simulate making decisions, simulate making choices, and for all intents and purposes, maybe are, right? If you can't tell the difference between a simulation and the real thing, are they not perhaps the
Right,
same? So I was talking
right.
to her about all this. She is not exactly the biggest tech advocate. She's probably pretty aware, but in terms of her opinions about technology, she's far more of the let's go back to the days when everything was analog and physical. So I started talking to her about this, and she felt like it's almost a perversion of humanity. Maybe that's like really big words to kind of throw out there, but it is creating life. And that's how I feel like it is. I feel like it's creating life. What do you think about the ethical side of not just AI, because everyone says, what are the ethics of AI? And we need alignment and all these different things, but the ethical side of autonomous agents, specifically simulating lifelike behavior.
Yeah, so I think it's first important to define what a large language model actually is and how it works. So you can think of it as it's trained on an enormous corpus of data. And really, all it does is you give it a prompt and it's just trying to predict what the next most likely word is to your prompt. So if you're saying, I'm going to they might think store is the next likely word. And it gets incredibly complex once you do that at scale. And so you're able to say, generate me Python code that does this or that. And it can do that. But really, at the end of the day, it's just predicting what's next in a text string. So there's like this argument of is it actually thinking? Is it actually alive? And so that I think that's important first to discuss when you're talking about the ethics of it. Um, Also, they currently are stateless, right? So large language models are trained on data and they have no memory. So
And
you're asking
stateless
a
meaning
question.
no memory, right?
Yeah, so no memory. As soon as the training is done, anything that comes after that is not included in that training set, and they don't have any context outside of what you're providing it in the prompt. So I think it is important to think about those things as you're considering what the ethics are. Now, this is kind of the framework of what would lead to artificial general intelligence, and then what is consciousness. That is a whole discussion in itself. Um, so there's a lot to consider with the ethics. I think right now we're in such early days. What we need to really be thinking about is the immediate risks of large language models. So disinformation, misinformation, deep fakes, for example. There's a lot of risk there as we're thinking about the longer term implications of the ethics of actually creating something that might be considered alive.
Yeah, I mean, I think that last sentence there, creating something that might be alive. And first of all, we don't even necessarily know, right? And then
Yeah.
also same thing with consciousness. Like we don't know what consciousness is. We don't necessarily know how to measure it. Turing tests, at least as I've understood them, have all been beaten, and now we've just redefined what the Turing test is, which is again the test of is something
Right.
conscious or what exactly was the Turing test a measure of, like consciousness or intelligence,
Yeah, it's basically
humanity?
an artificial intelligence program fool a human into thinking that it is a human. That's
Right.
really what the Turing test is.
So yeah, so
And
given that,
we're there, by the way,
we're there,
like
right? Like
easily there. Yeah,
yeah, the objective that we have been trying to achieve with artificial intelligence since the concept, well, since computing was really invented 70, 80, 90 years ago, we've achieved. So given that we're now dealing with questions of like, what are the ethics of making something that might be alive? What do you think about that? If you give birth to a human, you are obviously very responsible for that person, especially as they grow up, how they act in the world, right? You're trying to teach them, you're trying to guide them. If you can now flippantly do it through programming and not really have to own the consequences, like, and again, let's be fully honest, I am fucking loving AI. I am all aboard it. But I think to kind of have the conversation, I think you and I both have similar minds and are
yeah.
both very, very interested in AI. I mean, these are like fun things to explore, and they're also serious questions to kind of start thinking about. So what do you think should happen with people making life? Should we
Yeah. So
regulate? Should we like do something else? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we could talk about the regulation aspect. I think actually, let's go back to the autonomous agents paper for a second. So, um, you're putting all of these, let's say, living quote unquote living NPCs in a virtual world, and you're letting them live their lives. When I made a video about this, a lot of the people who watched the video commented and said, what about the ethics? What about if you do something really mean to one of these agents? Are they going to remember it? Are they going to form a plan to get revenge on you? And
When you
I
stop
think
running
a
the
lot of this,
simulation and you effectively murder all of them, is that bad?
right. Right, and in a lot of these comments were tongue in cheek, but they're actually pretty
Yeah.
valid thoughts and thought experiments. Um, I don't know, it's so early. I'm excited just to see this stuff in actual like implemented in the real world. I am still thinking through like what does it mean? What are the ethics behind it? Um, I think I would probably treat if I truly believed artificial intelligence was conscious, I would treat them the same way I would treat anybody else with the
Yeah.
golden rule. How do I want to be treated? That's how I would treat them. So you can think of it. There are some animals where like flies, for example, or fish. You start to think like, are they truly conscious, or are they just reacting to their environment and chemical signals in their brain? But still, like for me, like I want to treat them well.
Yeah.
I am going to assume they feel pain. I am going to assume that they have some thoughts, whether they're super basic or not. So that's, yeah, I guess just applying the golden rule. If I did truly believe, I think having a definition of what it means to be conscious, especially in the context of artificial intelligence, that is broadly accepted, is probably going to help with this discussion quite a bit.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting and very early times, but we're also
Yeah.
this is the fastest moving technology that has ever existed, fastest adopted,
Yeah.
most fundamental change. I mean, even with the advent of the printing press probably took a very big fundamental change, the dissemination of knowledge. But how many years or decades or millennia, or not millennia, but hundreds of years, did it take for that really to impact the entire world? Even with
Yeah.
the internet, right? The consumer-based internet, or even personal computing. These are all things that have evolved over at least multiple year periods. And then with AI, we're seeing it like week by week is fundamentally changing, especially with the open source stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple pretty clear reasons why this has been adopted at such a high rate, even compared to world-changing technology like the internet or the computer. I think first, culturally, we've been talking about artificial intelligence for a long time, even like well before we had the technology to potentially even start to build what AI looks like, right? Between movies and books, and there's an understanding of what it could look like pretty broadly in civilization. So when ChatGPT was released and people saw, oh wow, this is really cool. I think it made a lot of sense. Like people just understood this is a huge thing. This is a huge step forward for us. And so it really helped in the proliferation of this new technology. Um, and I I think, yeah, I think that's just a huge part of why it spread so quickly between just the consciousness and of what is possible, and the technology. Just it was almost like overnight. It went from you know, pretty basic machine learning, not basic, but machine learning, not close to artificial intelligence, and then actually something you could talk to with ChatGPT and have real conversations. And people were blown away by the technology.
Yeah. It also only took people, what was it, like 3 or 4 months to realize that the model was already out there, and you slap a chat interface on it and it blows everyone's mind. So it was also
Yeah,
interesting to see that the model existed prior to people really conceptually understanding what it was. And it just, when we took it into a human centric modality
yeah,
conversation, that's when it really became something that transformed the world. Because again, certain companies already saw it and they were doing it. I think Copilot was working on um, GPT-3 for quite a while. And so when they dropped it, it was kind of maybe in line with ChatGPT. I forget exactly when Copilot came out, but they had started to work off of the GPT-3 model. But what do you think it is about the chat interface that captured hearts and minds so much faster? I mean, the fastest growing product adoption ever, right? So that's a massive leap forward versus any other product that's ever been created. And it's a chat interface. Like, why that modality that changed people's adoption?
natural language, right? It's you can talk to this like you would talk to anybody, and you don't need to be So with coding, with programming, you have to be precise, right? There's like one input to one output, and if you get one little thing wrong, the program doesn't work. Natural language is not like that. And ChatGPT is not like that. You don't have to be precise. You can have misspellings. You can have 10 different people describe something in 10 different ways and potentially get the same or a very similar response from it. And so I think that was really a crucial piece to it becoming such a cultural phenomenon, because it it wasn't kind of locked in the realm of engineers and high tech thinkers. It could be accessed by really anybody, and so it really is the natural language aspect to it. And I don't actually think, one thing I'm surprised about is how the voice part hasn't taken off as much. Like, we have
Mm.
Siri on our phone, it doesn't work super well. Like, I'll use it to set a timer or set reminders for myself, but not much more than that. And it struggles with anything more than that. The fact that we haven't seen as much of a proliferation of the voice modality is really surprising to me. I don't think text is the final destination for how people interact with artificial intelligence. I think it's voice. Um, and maybe it's the fact that OpenAI doesn't have a hardware platform that they're building on, like an iPhone or an Android. Maybe that's it. I'm not sure. Maybe this is Microsoft's chance to kind of reinvigorate their phone, their own
Bring back
hardware.
Cortana.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just this week they announced a bunch of ChatGPT functionality deeply integrated into Windows. So I know they're thinking about it. But anyways, my point is, yeah, it's certainly the natural language aspect. Although I don't think text is the final destination.
Yeah, I would agree with you fully. The very first thing that I tried to do was get it on get it to voice, right? So I found some type of, there's iPhone shortcuts or whatever, they're like mini scripts that you can put onto an iPhone, and
Yep,
someone
yep.
launched one called SGPT. I don't know if you saw it, but basically
I didn't see that.
it's voice to text and then text to action, right? So you talk to it, it transcribes that into English, it sends that to GPT or OpenAI, and then it pulls back whatever that is, and then it has 50 different pre-programmed responses that it can detect and then do on your phone, such as sending a text message. I guess is a simple example because Siri can already do that, but doing more complex things like creating a playlist on Spotify with artists from the 1950s, and it will do that and then auto start playing it. So, but it's like not really good, and no one's really leaning into it. I mean, if I
Right.
was Amazon, and maybe they're already working on it, but the very first thing I would try to do is push out a firmware update to have this baked into every single Alexa device, and you will
Right.
absolutely rock the world. Obviously, it's expensive, but like that would be massively game changing if you just now have almost a human that you can just talk to in your house that has read the internet. I mean, that is amazing as a concept.
Yeah, agreed. I think one of the big hurdles right now, at least, is that it's not native. Like, you described a use case where you can do it and you can upload kind of custom scripts to Siri or Android, with OK Google, but it's not native. So you would have to say, like, "Hey Siri, run this command," then give it the prompt. Oh, it's funny. Siri just said, "Yeah, of course." Um, yeah, so you're saying, like, run this command, and it's not fluid, it's not native yet. I can't do it easily, and then it's also not built deeply into and have hooks into iPhone's API endpoint, so it can't do like all of the nice integration stuff that Siri can do natively.
Right.
So it's really just a matter of time. Apple has to do it. Google has to do it. Google has Bard, so they're likely to have Bard deeply integrated into Android phones. I don't know what Apple's going to do. Of course, they're working on it. They have, $1 trillion to play with. So I'm sure they're doing it. I just don't know what it's going to look like quite yet.
Yeah. But yeah, so the article that I was taking a look at, and I haven't really dove as deeply as I want into it, but Apple did put something out on May 16th, and I have it here. Apple introduces new features for cognitive accessibility, along with live speech, personal voice, and point and speak magnifier. So it's more of,
Right.
again, on the hardware side of things than AI and voice aspects. But one of the things that I found really, really interesting and maybe a little creepy, but also really interesting is this personal voice capability. So it's specifically focused on accessibility. So people who have lost their voice in a permanent way, gone through some medical issue, and it's harder for them to speak or to control their voice or their vocal cords. But with 15 minutes of you speaking in recorded audio, it will create a really good facsimile of your voice. And then you can type out whatever you want to say, and your phone can either broadcast it or you can send it in a text message as a voice memo to someone. And so, kind of doing this translation layer, we already have voice to text, right? Dictate a message to Siri. It's generally pretty good. But this text to your own voice that sounds like you, that is uniquely based off of your own voice, and then Matt records something or Matt types something, it turns it into
Right.
audio. He sends it to me. I type something back, and then that turns into Elijah's audio, sends that back. I mean, we're going to have full conversations where it's your robot talking to my robot, and your robot sounds like you, and my robot sounds like me.
Well, what do you even need me for, or you, in the conversation? I'll just have ChatGPT generate the conversation, then it'll translate into my voice, and then yeah, it's funny to think about in the future, where ChatGPT is answering my text messages, but they're answering it to text messages that were also generated by somebody else's ChatGPT. So, there are going to be these loops that we get involved in where it is just two agents talking to each other and we're not even there.
So,
It's funny to think about.
so rather than me doing podcasts, maybe I'll just have my agent talk to your agent for solid 3 hours and cut that and push that up.
Yeah, what do I even need to be here for, man?
Well, I think that's the big question that people are worried about is that AI will be saying, "What do we need these human beings that aren't really that productive, aren't really that efficient?" Sure, they created us. That's great. Your parents made you. That's great. But at some point, they're
Yeah.
older and they're not getting as much done. So, yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah, and then we can get into a whole discussion about AI risks and alignment and um yeah, I mean there's a lot to talk about there as well. Um last week Sam Altman testified in front of the Senate about AI risks, and then just this week, OpenAI published a blog post about governance of superintelligence, and they're thinking about it in a few ways. Um, but ultimately, it comes down to alignment, and there's actually a lot of work to be done there. And alignment just means you know, our the incentives for AI aligned with our incentives, and our goals aligned with theirs. So as long
So
as
we
we could
don't
do
get
that
murdered.
yeah, but it has to be like technically done. We can't just say these things. There actually has to be like hardware limitations and hardware implementations, software implementations of these things, of alignment. So yeah, it's an exciting world.
It really is. It's fun times. I want to switch tacks a little bit. So obviously you are a battle-tested, successful Silicon Valley venture capital-backed entrepreneur with an exit. We all know that a lot of those are buzzwords and mean different things when you experience them versus you actually go through them. But talk to me a little bit about just the overall timeline that was Sonar, your journey through it. Just start with a high level of starting it, the idea, building it, acquisition, and that cycle.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I mean, to start, I've really been obsessed with two things my entire life. I've always known what I've wanted to do, and that was entrepreneurship and technology. And so after college, I moved back down to Los Angeles, and every other day I was reading a TechCrunch article or a Hacker News article about, some startup got funded, they're building something amazing, and I had the most incredible amount of FOMO you can possibly imagine. So I ended up, picking up, leaving all of my friends and family behind with my then girlfriend, now wife, and we moved to San Francisco. Um, and I just wanted to be in the heart of it, and that's where it was. And I had a couple companies that I either joined or started very briefly after that, and they failed, what either quickly or shortly after. Um, and then I actually got involved with 500 startups through that, through one of those companies, and I was working at 500 startups, which is an investment company. They invest in early stage tech startups, and I was helping their portfolio companies with growth, user acquisition, analytics, and one of the companies that I had been helping was this company called Maven, and they uh, I was talking with the CTO one day, and he was telling me about this problem. I remember this so clearly because it's like a conversation that did truly change the trajectory of my life. And he was saying like, hey, all of my customers are trying to text message me. And you have to keep in mind, this is, 2014. Twilio was big, but not what they are now. There really wasn't a good solution at the time to actually have like high touch two-way conversations. A lot of the text messaging applications out there were really like one to many notification type text messaging. And so we were sitting, he was telling me about this problem, and I said, hey, if I build it, will you pay for it? Not for the build, but, for the actual service. And so he said yes. And I spent the next 6 weeks, nights and weekends, building out what became the prototype of Sonar. And it's sendsonar.com, was the previous company. And they started using it. The prototype was horrendous. I know there's like a famous saying from Reid Hoffman that if you're not embarrassed by your first, MVP, you launched too late. I could not be more embarrassed by it. It did not scale. The interface was ugly. The bugs left and right. The good thing is that me and the CTO were buddies, and he was very forgiving, and I was on top of their feedback. So anything that they asked for, I tried to build it and turn it around within an hour. And that was really my life at that time. Ended up getting a few more customers, over the next few months, and then decided, hey, I'm going to go do this full time. This is cool. And I had a conversation with my boss at the time, Christine Tsai at 500, and I said, hey, I'm going to quit and go do this full time. And by the way, can you also fund me? So that was a funny conversation to have, and bringing up both of those things. Luckily, she was cool with me leaving, and she also said, yes, of course, I will fund you. So yeah, raised some money from some great angels, and a VC, and just started growing from there. We hired some amazing people over the years, built it out, basically through 2014 through 2019, and then at the end of 2019 we were acquired. At the beginning of 2019 we were approached by a public company called Marchex, and then through due diligence and negotiation, at the end we were acquired. And then, we kept building it through that acquisition. I worked for Marchex for a number of years, and just a week ago, I actually left. And now I'm a full-time YouTuber.
So, first of all, that is the Silicon Valley dream, right? So, for better or for worse, at least from the outside, the dream is I want to be part of tech. I want to be an entrepreneur. Let me move to the Valley. Maybe I'll learn some things. I'll build a thing. I'll raise some money, and then I'll get acquired. How much did that dream line up with reality?
So when I was living in Los Angeles, reading about all of these companies getting funding, I thought, why am I not there? I could be the next Bill Gates. I could be the next Mark Zuckerberg. I didn't see like why it wouldn't happen. I just thought I needed to find the right problem to solve. And so when I started Sonar, I had the same thought, like we're going to start somewhere. Like I want a problem, a serious problem to solve, and a potential market that is huge. And I really thought if I just spent enough time on it and iterated quickly enough, in a few years I'd be able to IPO. But shortly after starting, it was pretty clear that my expectations were so out of line with reality. Um, we Sonar. did well. We got to millions in ARR, but we were certainly not a rocket ship, right? VC math requires you to either have a humongous exit or IPO, and we were not going to be either of those things. Granted, we were successful on a smaller scale, but it was very different from what I had thought was going to happen when I first set out and started building Sonar. Um, and I mean, it was an interesting experience to learn that too. My expectations over time changed. The way I wanted to run the company over the years that I was building it changed. Um, at the beginning, it was my entire life. I did not do anything else. I worked crazy hours for, the first 4 years, 60, 80, 100-hour weeks every single week. And then even when I wasn't working, I was thinking about it. I was never, actually offline. And it definitely got to me. So I did have to change my expectations, especially when kind of realized like, hey, this isn't going to be a rocket ship. And so, yeah, a lot of things changed since when I first set out with my company and the expectations I had at that time through building process and then finally the small-ish exit we had.
So one of the things we talked about a little bit is that change in desire, right? And
Yeah,
also kind of I kind of went through not the same journey, but I also was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, wanted to be a tech entrepreneur, moved to the Bay. You and I both self-taught the program, right? So kind of went
yeah,
through some of these things, co-founded a company, raised money, all that kind of stuff. And I think one of the things that I discovered along the way is that there's this narrative, I think, across the world, which is that Silicon Valley equals venture capital and venture capital equals building software products. And there is some truth to that concept, but I think there are degrees. When you're building something, when you're building a business, if it is capital intensive and you don't have your own cash, you need investment. That's the only
yeah,
way in which to do it. It's a logical thing, right? If you think that you
yeah,
will make a lot of money, take a little bit of money now, pay back the people who invested in you. That's a common precept. I think the thing that I discovered along the way is that you need to be very careful about taking too much money and becoming too dependent on external capital. If
yeah,
you're a Facebook, this can make sense. You want to continue to eat the entire marketplace and bring in users more than you want to value getting to profitability. And so you raise after raise after raise after raise. If you are on that rocket ship that you're talking about, that business model makes sense. It's still good for the founder, typically. Um, but the problem is that that is not what most companies do. And that's also not the narrative that is applied. The narrative is that you should always just keep growing exponentially and just keep raising more capital and either flame out or blow up, right? Blow up in the good
right.
sense. So, how was it for you to shift that perspective? What was that process of like learning what venture capital truly means and the impact that money can have into your company from an external capital perspective, but then also what profitability looks like, the importance of profitability and kind of controlling your own destiny with a business?
Yeah, so I'll preface with saying I wish I truly understood what it meant to take VC capital. Like you said, when you think about moving to Silicon Valley, it's just like, yeah, of course, we're going to raise money, we're going to grow, and then we're going to IPO. Um, I truly wish I understood what that meant. When you take VC capital, you have to work. You should work within the VC's math, right? They make a few dozen bets and they need one to work out. Workout being huge exit, 100x exit. Um, but you have to also
And real
remember
quick, what do you
that.
mean by work in their math? Do you mean like model that into your expectations, or you need to fit their bucket in terms of what their financial model is?
So when you take money from them, they expect you to kind of have the hyper growth or hyper death mentality. They don't care if one of their companies fails. They only care about the one company they need to succeed in being an IPO or an extremely great exit. And so when you're growing your company, you're thinking about each decision in the through the lens of, is this going to 10x whatever metric I'm working on at that time? Right. And you're not necessarily thinking, you brought up profitability, and that's right. You're not thinking about, okay, can I grow maybe a little bit more slowly, but also stay profitable and have kind of a more secure growth trajectory? They don't want that. So when you take their money, they're expecting you to build a company in the model of a typically VC-backed company, which is hyper growth, hyper death. Because otherwise, their math doesn't make sense. And when I say their math doesn't make sense, if you have a 3x exit, a 5x exit, it doesn't do anything for them,
Yeah.
because their math requires just one company to do extremely well. And so, yeah, it like changes every decision that you make in your company. And I wish I knew that. I wish I knew what that meant. And it really affects every aspect of how you think about your company, the culture, who you hire, thinking about it, like how much you work, your work-life balance. But once I got started and I had payroll and I had people on my team that I deeply cared about, like all of a sudden taking these huge risks to achieve hyper growth made me super uncomfortable. I wanted to make sure that I had a company that was going to be able to pay people's payroll week after week. And if that meant we had to grow a little bit more slowly to achieve profitability and to have a longer runway and to be able to experiment more, especially because Sonar, we didn't hit the problem and the solution, the product market fit exactly from day one. It took us, a couple of years to really find our footing there. And so if we had just heavily invested and gone all in on that initial product market fit, the initial kind of problem solution set, we probably would have run out of money. And then, look, we had a team of incredibly smart people. They would have been fine. They would have got a job somewhere else. But I deeply cared about our company, our customers. I wanted to, it was just I don't know, a year and a half into building Sonar that I started thinking, no, I would rather build a long lasting, sustainable company and not necessarily go all in and really risk it all, put all my chips on the table. I'd rather save some and make sure that we can continue this and iterate and find the right product market fit, regardless of if it took, a couple extra years.
One of the things that I think is not talked about is the sheer terror, the anxiety that comes with bringing on employees.
Yeah.
So I know you and I have talked about this, but talk a bit about, like you said, your employees would probably be fine. They're smart people that go find other jobs, but you started changing your decision making based on keeping the business alive and supporting them. So talk about like that fear, which I really don't think is talked about that much. That fear of, maybe not fear, but that responsibility of taking care of your team. You convince them to come to this super risky company,
Yeah.
right? Where it's the odds are stacked against you. You're not making enough money. You're losing money each month, right? You're predicated based on potentially raising in the near future. So how does that like affect your life and then also your decision making when you're running a company prior to your exit?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great question and great point. When I was hiring people, they were foregoing jobs at FANG companies, right? They were foregoing potentially 2-3 times the compensation package to come join Sonar and take a huge pay cut and do something exciting. And there were two ways we compensated them for that. The one is the obvious way, is equity, right? So they're foregoing top level compensation for potential outcomes of Sonar. The second way is title, right? You can over title people as a way to compete with, FANG offers, but that's aside the point. they've already sacrificed by joining us, right? The time is the resource that nobody is going to have more of, right? It's the most finite resource, the most important resource anybody has. So they're sacrificing their time to come join me and Sonar, the team, to build something awesome. And once they've done that, and especially the more time they've been at this early stage company, the more they've already sacrificed. And so as we grew, but weren't rocket ship growth, that anxiety of the the anxiety of, hey, this group of people that I truly care about has sacrificed so much, and we're not hitting those metrics that we need to, and they could go get jobs elsewhere and support their family, at a much higher paid rate. It was really hard. It was really hard to deal with, and so I again, like, we could have continued and paid people well under market rate and just went completely all in with Sonar and took all the risks. But then I realized, like, hey, if we slow down a little bit, if we start focusing on profitability, I can pay people much better. Maybe their equity won't be worth as much in 5 years, if it's worth anything at all, to be clear. Like, there's a high chance when you join an early stage
Very high
startup, a
chance.
high chance, like a 95% chance that your equity is going to be worth zero. So I'd rather kind of reduce the exponential upside to the outcome, to the really nice outcome. I'll reduce that a little bit while being able to support them more effectively today. I really liked that trade-off, and it became more and more obvious to me that that was, at least for me and my personality and the way I wanted to run things, that was the right call. And so, yeah, we started focusing on profitability. We started focusing on slightly slower growth, but actual business metrics, and thinking about things that actually mattered and would grow the business and to a real business that might be able to last a long time. So yeah, there was a lot of anxiety in the early days, especially when it became clear that we weren't going to be a rocket ship company.
The subtle shift that you had there is something that I do all the time too, which is the distinction between a startup and a business. Startups often make zero money, and the goal is rocket ship. In my mind, I don't know if this is a correct definition, and then a business is about sustainability, creating value, right? Both are trying to create value, find product market fit. But then a business is about staying around. It's about consistently creating that value, solving those equations of bringing in enough revenue to offset your costs while also investing in growth. And I think that for whatever reason, at least I have always had the stigma of small business, right? SMBs, or, businesses in general, is less sexy than startups. Startups are so cool and so
Yeah.
hip and tech forward. And I think that there has been a bit of a shift. I've been talking with some investors recently who are actually opening up to looking for more of those 3Xs, those 5Xs, and kind of shifting the model and giving more power back into the entrepreneur's hands to determine, what do you want this to be? Do you want an exit? Do you want to just make it a lifestyle business, which is the common term that's kind of
I'm so
poo-pooed in the
glad you said
valley?
that
Yeah.
term. Yeah, that it's such a pejorative term. I like when you hear
I even did
lifestyle
air quotes with
business.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there is this middle ground where you can have kind of a traditional Silicon Valley-esque company, but not necessarily have to be hyper growth or hyper death. And at the same time, you are not a lifestyle business, which I'll define lifestyle business as just enough to pay, everybody's compensation, not really like going after, not trying to grow as aggressively as a typical startup. There's a wide gray area in between those two things. And first of all, nothing wrong with a lifestyle business at all. But I think there's this, especially like in the new macroeconomic environment, there is this desire to have more focus on profitability and being efficient. And it lends itself better to things that are maybe not like the hyper growth, hyper death model.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I've learned as I've gotten older is that there is nuance, especially I guess in this political climate and everything that's going on in the world. There is so much nuance in life, and it's so much easier if this person's the villain, they're wrong, I'm right, I'm good, you're bad, or I'm bad and you're good. And that's just this is right, this is wrong, right? Business model, right? I think that while that is very attractive and seductive to just want to label and put people in buckets or businesses or ideas in buckets and label them very simply, I think there's so much nuance in everything that you can do. And there's a spectrum, right? And you're kind of talking about a lifestyle business versus a small business versus a growth oriented targeting a 3x or a 5x or a 50% year over year growth, right? Those are all extremely healthy business options. It's not just startup or not. And you kind of even described it too. A 5% chance of success working a 100-hour work week versus a business which is sustainable and still growing at a healthy pace and producing a profit. And which one has the pejorative name associated with it? The latter. I
Right.
mean, it's stupid. It's just stupid.
I read something years ago that I thought was so interesting. They said for the risk reward trade off, joining a Series B or Series C company, as you know, at that stage was the best risk to reward trade off, right? So if you go any earlier than that, the outcomes are potentially huge, but the chance of that outcome is incredibly small. And then anything later than that, you've kind of missed the multiple X outcome for yourself. You're just going to get a salary, which again, totally fine if that's what you're into. But um, I
Getting the
did
best
find it
pot odds
interesting
at
that,
that point.
yeah, pot odds, right? And so I think, yeah, Series B, Series C joining at that point, that is what a lot of I just remember reading this, that was really mathematically your best bet to um kind of do well for yourself financially.
Yeah, it is interesting, and there's the allure and the sexiness of high risk, high reward. But if you do the math, it's not necessarily the best strategic play.
Yeah, and also, things change. Again, like when I was, as you said, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, moving to Silicon Valley, I didn't want to do anything but work. And that changed over time. I
Yeah,
got married. I had a kid. I, you know, at the peak of Sonar stress, before I really made a conscious change to how I was working, I would leave in the morning before my son woke up, and this was before he was 1 years old yet. I would come home after he went to sleep. I basically didn't see him for his first year of life, and then even when I wasn't working, my mind was still thinking about it. So I wasn't there, and so it like became untenable. I had to change something, and that happens, and I kind of go back to, I wish I knew some of this stuff up front, but you live and you learn, I suppose. But yeah, people should try to really understand what they're getting into.
all right. So Matt, zero interest rate
Yeah.
world versus the new paradigm, plus the new paradigm including AI. Starting out as a new entrepreneur, let's start there. Talk.
Yeah. So the zero interest rate environment and the low interest rate environment was an interesting time. I moved to San Francisco at the beginning of it, right after 2008 financial crisis, and kind of rode that wave through the end of it. And it is really conducive to hypergrowth and hyperdeath startups. And there was really not a lot of other options. In the last few years, I think that's
What do you mean other
changed.
options? Like other yeah, what do you
Other
mean by
ways
other
to
options?
run a company, other ways, like, we talked about the gray area, right? Between, you're either a VC backed company and you're going to IPO or fail, or you're a lifestyle business and not backable by VCs. And so that was really an artifact of the zero interest rate environment. I think there's been in the last few years, so even before interest rates have gone up significantly, but I think people started to realize there needs to be other ways. There's incredibly smart people out there who want to work really, really hard, but also look at this math of, you know, a 1% chance of true success in that framework of the VC backed model, and they balk at it. They don't want it. You know, they want to work hard. They want to build amazing things. They want to solve real problems, go after massive markets, but not necessarily put their entire life and mental health and company and all their employees, you know, on the line to do it. And so I know there's a few VC funds that kind of have figured out math that works better for those that the gray area type companies, and especially now in this new macroeconomic environment, there's much more focus on efficiency, on profitability, on unit economics, which, you know, I love these things.
Business
But it's
metrics, not
great.
startup, not always the startup
Business
metrics.
metrics,
Yeah.
right? Like Uber, they lost money, VC subsidized rides for years and years and years. And but yeah, now like there's this huge focus, and even the big tech companies are thinking about it, right? And then yeah, then you layer on AI, where a single engineer can be you know, 10 100x more productive, more efficient at the same cost. All of a sudden you have companies that can be built at a fraction of the cost, much more efficiently, much more productive. They can iterate more quickly, work through to product market fit more quickly. And that is super interesting to me. You know, there's kind of a thought of, okay, well, if you're able to build a company that previously took, you know, 10,000 employees or whatever it is, and now you only need 2,000 employees, what does that mean for the remaining 8,000 people? Well, you know, one way to think about it is they're out of jobs. But I don't think it's that way. I actually think that of those 8,000 people, it's so much more attractive for them now to go work on other problems. And the total productivity of this little world we're in Silicon Valley is going to go up so tremendously. You know, I tend to be an optimist with these things, but I do think that that's going to be the outcome, where each company doesn't need to be as well resourced because they are leveraging artificial intelligence, and they are thinking about unit economics. But there's going to be so many more companies solving so many more different problems, and more competition, and all of these things are really good for GDP. So I'm personally excited by it.
Who would you say? Well, first of all, I agree. I am also in the optimistic camp. I think when you talk about whether it's building software or it's any type of labor that's potentially being replaced by AI, there's the argument of, do you fire 90% of your workforce, or do you produce 10 times what you could have done with the same workforce, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
AI obviously is a multiplier one way or another. And I think that technology has always made people just be able to do more. I remember encountering something, I think it was in relation to AI, but they were talking about how in the 50s, the typical American nuclear family was, you know, women, the wife stayed at home and the man went to work. And so when washing machines came out, and there were other kind of, dishwasher came out when it was first invented, people started talking about how there will just be nothing to do for housework because all the work is going to be done, and the things that took hours before are not going to be needed
Sounds
to
so
be done
silly
anymore.
now.
It does, right? First of all, it's just such an
Yeah.
archaic mindset. But
Yeah.
it's the same type of thing of there is a way that we have done something historically. It took more time. This new technology completely eradicates the need for that work or reduces it by 90%. What happens with that extra time? Is that person no longer have a purpose? Or do they start doing things that are actually more meaningful and create even more value in different ways? And, you know, fortunately, women started showing up more and more in the workplace, and culture
Yeah.
changed and things shifted. But regardless, it's not like there's this new technology, and now we're all like, oh shit, we're gonna fire everyone. 90% of the world is not going to work anymore, or Silicon Valley, or whatever microcosm you want to pick. I think just we have a lot more abundance than we previously
Yeah.
had. A lot more luxury, a lot more free time, a lot more capabilities, a lot more different options. And I think that's something that was interesting that you said with the zero interest rate Silicon Valley environment. There weren't really these other options. And now there's this entire spectrum of you as an individual who doesn't even know how to code can probably leverage AI today, maybe in 3 months, build a software product that pays whatever your cost of living is. And you could, you know, move forward in your life with 100 users paying, $50 a month. And that's I don't know what that math is, but maybe that's like a 60K salary a year or something, right? And maybe that's it. So I just think that there's a lot more room for these small micro products, which are really, really niche down, but creating massive value, just exponentially more value for people in whatever that micro community is.
Yeah, and I'm very excited. Again, like I'm in the camp of I'm an optimist. I think the productivity gains are going to be absolutely insane. Um, and there's this ancillary and incredibly important benefit that comes along with that, which is especially the U.S. has an enormous debt,
Yes.
enormous, crippling. We are not going to be able to fund uh, programs that have already been promised.
We're
And
not going to
really
be able
there's
to
three.
fund our interest payments on our debt
Right,
soon.
right. I think it was just like the interest payments on the debt surpassed what we spend on military spending. I hope I got that right, but I think it's like
It's a
some
third of
ridiculous
GDP, I
fact like
think.
that.
Yeah.
So, there's three ways to solve that problem. Two of the ways are not going to work. So, first is you increase taxes, right? There's going to be a lot of people who don't want to do that, uh, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on politically. Let's
People
just
who
say
do want to do that in a dramatic way will probably not get elected.
exactly, right.
Yes.
You're going to say, "Hey, elect me," and you're going to be paying a lot more. It's not going to go over very well. The second way to do that is by cutting spending, and again, it's the same thing. Elect me, and you're going to get a whole lot less.
And we're
It
talking
doesn't go well.
major change. Yeah.
Right, major change. And when the person next to you is saying elect me and you're going to get, free ice cream every day, like it's how are you ever going to win? And then there's the third, which is productivity has to increase dramatically. And so I think that third case is where we're going to have, or we have to have, the win, and artificial intelligence potentially could be the lever to get there.
I think if it's not the lever, we're in trouble. But yes, I agree with you.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's a very scary
I'm
reality.
positive it will be. I mean, it
Yeah.
seems like it's heading in that direction already. The productivity gains that I've seen in my personal life from using AI coding, for example, it's incredible.
Yeah. I'm 100% with you there. And coding, it's changed my world entirely with coding. It's changed my world with Slack updates, writing emails, doing
Yeah,
research, summarizing things, cooking. I now cook. I just, rather than Googling and finding an article for how to make something, which out, every single recipe website out there, they're so crammed full of junk and ads and
yeah. You get the
pop-ups. And
author's life story,
yeah, it's like, just show me the instructions. And I,
right?
I just, I'm literally taking my directions from a robot that just predicts words after another word. And I made an amazing, my first breaded chicken ever the other day with some recipe that it just made up, which again, it's informed, but yeah, the productivity gains are insane.
Yeah,
What about, I think you touch a little bit, you said the word mental health as it relates to building startups. Talk
yeah.
to me a bit about what that environment was, maybe again, kind of comparing and contrasting between what the old paradigm was, and maybe if you want to, anything that you struggle with in that shift as you went from zero interest rate environment, aggressive young person that wasn't necessarily, didn't have kids, didn't have as many obligations, that was grinding away, and then shifting into kind of the you now, which is more of a balanced and nuanced approach, also balancing like yourself, your needs. Where does mental health kind of come into that for you personally, and just your thoughts on it?
Well, I wish I thought about it earlier. Um, I have suffered with anxiety and depression pretty much my whole life. And of course, what else would I do but to do and take the most stressful job possible? But yeah, when I started Sonar, I was not thinking about my mental health at all. I was working insane hours. I didn't exercise. I didn't eat well. My brain was never off. I really thought about it as a sprint, but the longest sprint possible. And it truly affected me. I went through periods where I didn't really want to get out of bed. I didn't want to work. I was not interested in doing it. And I was like forcing it every single day. And of course, all the stresses of running a company, of having people who report to you, who you care about, having investors who you want to make happy, customers who they're relying on you to run their own business. All of these pressures from so many different angles were weighing on my shoulders. And so, yeah, I mean, I went through some tough points in the history of Sonar. At a certain point I had to start thinking about it, and this all kind of led through that transition we talked about, or to that transition we talked about. It led me to start thinking about, can I continue to put in 100-hour weeks every week for maybe 5, 7 more years? Like I physically, emotionally could not imagine continuing to do that. So I had to, I had to start changing things. And yeah, that's what led to a lot of the changes, was just my mental health was so poor. And again, it's like when you're a VC-backed company, kind of a lot of those qualities of a company force you to have anxiety. And maybe I'm not trying to, push the blame onto somebody else, but when you're expected to run a company a certain way, if if you do something else, it caused me a lot of anxiety when I started wanting to think about things a different way.
And
Um,
I'd say that it's the entire culture,
yeah,
not just of Silicon Valley, but the exported culture of America as well is grind. It's work hard. It's
yeah,
hustle
yep, yep,
culture, right?
yep,
It's all this pushing and this relentless pressure to do more, be more. You're not good enough. Look at Instagram. This person is 18 years old and has 10 million followers, and what have you done with your life, right? So there's
yeah,
always
yep,
this
yep,
this pressure to kind of do more. How do you? So I agree with you. Everything that you said, like I relate to it so much. I struggled to get out of bed so many times, like just with the pure self-loathing internally of feeling like I'm a piece of
yeah.
shit because I'm not getting out and working more, and I know I need to do more, and I know I need to send those emails. So I think some of that just comes with experience. Sure, maturity maybe, but I mean maturity in the aging sense. As you get older, as you've gone through more things, as you've seen more shit, you just know more. How is it how are you able to like is can you teach someone at a younger path than you to shift this mindset? And I have my own ideas, but do you think it is something that you could have got at an earlier age? Could someone have said, "Oh, work-life balance, it actually matters." Like, what do you think would have actually gotten through to you earlier you?
Nothing. To be frank,
Yeah.
nothing. There
Yep.
there was
Yeah.
nothing that could have changed my mind at that time. I was so single-minded and tunnel visioned about what I wanted to do. There was really nothing.
Do you think for starting from 0 to 1 you need that tunnel vision? Do you think it's necessary or no? I see you hesitate.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I think you can do amazing things without it, but there's certainly like the fire that comes from being single-minded and thinking about it that way. That is a strong motivator, to say the least. So I want to answer one other question. You said, like, what could have changed it, and I said nothing. Given the circumstances, nothing. Now, if you talked about our culture here in America, and even more precisely Silicon Valley, had that culture been different, I think I would have followed the culture. So if the culture was, yeah, work hard, but don't necessarily kill yourself, I probably would have followed that. But that it was not that. It was Silicon Valley is glamorous, and there was glamour to like working until you literally can't do it anymore. There was this shine to it. So if that were different, then yeah, maybe that would have changed things. But given the circumstances, there was nothing.
What do you think about imposter syndrome? Specifically, there's this duality of I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm a self-taught engineer that Googled some shit and has no clue how to build whatever I'm supposed to build. And all these people are putting this money into my company and giving me their trust. And I'm employing people and their lives depend on me now. But then the flip side of that coin is that even though you feel like you're completely unequipped to do it, you're still doing it. Is that like an entrepreneurial trait? Is that a desirable trait? Is that toxic? Like, what is that duality of not feeling like you can do it, but then also doing it, and then somehow you learn, grow, and build something?
I think you're right. I think it is the entrepreneurial trait. I think the foolishness really, or just like the naivety of like, hey, I know nothing about what's in this pool. I just see like black water, nothing below it. I have no idea what's in it. I'm
The
gonna dive.
abyss.
Right, right. Yeah, that I think that like that is an entrepreneurial trait. Um, I had imposter syndrome. Have right. I had it throughout my entire career. Right. I didn't go to a top tier school. That was always a chip on my shoulder, like Stanford, Harvard, MIT. Right. I didn't go to those schools. Uh, I didn't work at FANG companies. So all of these things caused me imposter syndrome. They all caused me to have a chip on my shoulder, and I still have it to this day. I mean, I know like I have people telling me, "Oh, you sold your company, amazing! Like you're successful." And maybe again, this is an entrepreneurial quality, or maybe this is just me. But I'm thinking like, oh well, I didn't sell it for more. I didn't build it into a company that served tens of thousands of customers. I didn't drive that much value. So even to this day, I still have severe imposter syndrome, and I think there's one thing that really allows me to some days kind of quell it or at least get past it a little bit, which is nobody knows what they're doing. That is something that I've only realized later in life. Nobody knows what they're doing, from the lowest level job all the way up through the president. They are just humans trying to figure it out as they go. Um, and with enough reps, with enough experience, you start to feel better. But if you're doing things right, you're always learning new things. So technically, you should always have some level of imposter syndrome. Um, but yeah, nobody knows what they're doing. So that makes me feel better occasionally.
No one knows what they're doing. I completely agree with that. I think we are all winging it, and we have different aspects that we show the world. So it looks more polished, maybe sounds more polished. You're in front of TV or YouTube or Instagram, or your friends put on their best faces. But I think we are all kind of here for a bit, experience life, trying to figure shit out as we go, and then we die, and that's it.
Yeah, and comfort with failure, I think, is an incredibly important trait to have. Maybe, you want to call it grit, but with my son and now my new daughter, like I want to instill in them that failure is not only okay, but it's really the only way to learn. Um, that is probably, I'd say, we've talked a lot of shit on Silicon Valley, but to like one of the things I admire most about the Silicon Valley culture is that failure is not just tolerated, but it is embraced. People don't say, if you start a company, you raise money and it fails, it goes to zero. People don't say like, "Ooh, we won't hire you," or "No, we won't fund you again." No, they do the exact opposite. It's, "Oh, you've learned so much from that experience. or I bet you're never going to make those failures again. So you're already ahead of the game. Let me hire you. Let me fund you. You're a multi-time founder. I absolutely love that quality about Silicon Valley, probably more so than any other quality it has. It's just like the acceptance and embracing of failure.
The desire almost to, well, the appreciation of it, right?
Yeah.
I think grittiness is exactly what you said. And I think that it's cool to hear you talk about teaching your kids that, because I do think in the past couple decades, maybe decade, there's been, even as I was growing up, there was kind of the beginning of the mindset of, participation trophies and coddling
Mm.
almost, right?
Yeah.
Of that adversity is bad and we need to shield people from adversity. And there's true hardship. Obviously, true hardship. If you're deeply suffering, we want to protect people from that. But conflict is not bad. And this is something that I still
Right.
struggle with. But the more I can lean into it, the more I can embrace it and recognize that conflict and adversity and difficulty in your life is what gives life meaning. It's how we learn. It's how we learn to interact with others. If Timmy pushes Susan on the playground, then you learn to deal with that, to talk about it, to figure out, well, why did that happen? What was the catalyst, right? And just engage and participate in confrontation, conflict, and discussing these things. So yeah, I mean,
Honestly,
it's
discomfort is just growth masked. That's all it is. Like discomfort is
completely agree.
growth. That is how you grow. That is the only way to grow. You can't grow in your comfort zone. You don't learn anything there.
I would say that coming back to the other trait that Silicon Valley, I think, does well, and the thing we're talking about of imposter syndrome, but specifically taking action when you don't really know what the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
Where does that fit in, teaching your kids or your belief system? Like, we have the aspect of being comfortable with failure. But I think that the other piece that needs to be included in that is being comfortable with it, but also learning through it. Because if you just accept something and you don't actively try to change it, if you failed at building a startup and you're like, I failed, and then you don't try again, you don't apply that knowledge. I think action and application of that knowledge, application in the world of you trying to do something, is also a very critical piece. So where does that kind of come in? And you talked about, again, imposter syndrome of doing all these things. No one knows what they're doing. What, if you were to give advice to maybe someone earlier in your state, early in the entrepreneurship path, what is it about just getting started? You and I talk about starting in the middle. Like,
Yeah.
what
I
is
was
that
hoping you were going to say
action
that.
piece?
Yeah. Yeah, you and I mean, you told me this term. I had never heard of it, but it made perfect sense. Starting in the middle, which is like, just get started. You'll figure it out and you'll probably fail because you are starting in the middle. You should start at the beginning. But, um, I think a lot of people, they wait for perfection. They don't think that they're ready to get started. They want to wait till they learn a little bit more. They want to wait till they have a little bit more money in the bank account. But there's like nothing better than getting the reps, right? Getting those reps under your belt, getting started, start anywhere, fail quickly, learn quickly, iterate quickly. Um, yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. It's like the confidence to know that failure is a good thing. It is something I'm teaching my kids, hopefully. And it's luckily I have that. I love just getting started, and I know you do too. I love just diving in. I don't care if I'm starting at the wrong place. Like the only way for me to learn is to just go. And so yeah, it is another thing where if I were to give advice, like start earlier than you think. It's actually like, let's bring it back to the Reid Hoffman statement. Like if you're not embarrassed about your prototype, you launch too late. Get it out there, get yourself out there, just go and fail at something. Get started, and right, because the only way you're going to learn is through that failure. If you just sit on something and try to, in a vacuum, figure it out and perfect it, it's going to take forever. And when you finally get it out there, you're actually going to get the feedback that you're looking for. And if it took you a year to even get something out to get feedback on, it doesn't matter if we're talking about a product or something you want to do with your life, a new activity, new hobby. just go get started. And it's gonna help increase the rate of iteration.
I want to highlight two examples here. One is you and I are recording my second podcast. Still don't have a name for it. Still don't really know how to edit them. Still don't know exactly how to publish them. But
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I start
But
recording,
here
I'm
we
going to
are.
figure the rest out. Exactly. Start in the middle.
Yeah.
And then you, I'd love to hear, again, you and I have talked a little bit about this, but your YouTube journey, you're now a YouTuber, right? And so talk about your early videos and what you did before kind of what you're doing right now and just the process of starting making videos.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, hearing that I'm a YouTuber is the funniest thing to me. So I love YouTube, but I have been terrified of being in front of a camera forever until recently, until about like February of this year. I've never been in front of a camera before. I've never edited videos before. Never used Premiere, none of it. But again, like I just wanted to do something and talk about something that I was excited about. I love YouTube. I love the format. I learn so much from YouTube. I gain so much entertainment for YouTube. So I thought, hey, like I'm gonna push myself out of my comfort zone. I'm gonna try something. And yeah, just decided to like, hey, I'm gonna talk about something I really like. At first, I was talking about like tech reviews. Um, because I'm like kind of a gadget person. I like talking about my phone and other gadgets I have throughout the house. And then I just like quickly started talking about AI. And my previous company integrated AI for a while, and so I had some experience there. But like when ChatGPT was released, I was just captivated. Yeah, it just started back in February of this year. I bought some equipment. I started doing the thing that I'm telling people not to do, which is like okay, what's the perfect lighting, the perfect camera, the perfect mic, and then finally I was like, all right, screw it, let's just go. And I put my iPhone up on a little mount and I just started recording. And then I saw the video. I was like, oh, okay, here's where I have to get better. And then people started commenting on the videos. They're like, oh, we can't hear your audio. And oh, you should do this a little differently. And it's like, oh my God, amazing. And so I started integrating those pieces of feedback and just, yeah, I kept growing from there. So from, absolutely knowing nothing about any of this to I think I make decent videos now. um, yeah, I'm pretty happy with it, but definitely started in the middle.
Yeah. And, if you're being kind of tying it back into what we've been talking about, each of those mistakes are kind of micro failures of you made the wrong type of video at first, right? You got very few views and you were doing tech reviews and it took a lot of time, a lot of effort. It wasn't as engaging as you wanted to be. And your audio
Yeah.
was wrong and you got the wrong equipment. And so like you've probably made, I don't know, 50 mistakes, 100 mistakes, who knows, in
Oh yeah, at
making
least.
these videos. But you also have made 30 videos, 50 videos or something. And,
I think I'm up to like almost 60 or 70 videos now. Yeah.
that's wild. And you're consistently getting between like 10 and 50,000 views per video now. And this,
Yeah.
you started this like
Yeah.
a couple months ago with no experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, you just gotta get started like anything else. And I'm going to look back at those first videos and be embarrassed about them for sure.
That's good. Good sign. Reed would
Yeah.
be proud.
Yeah.
All right. To kind of close things out, then, I want to ask 5 years from now, where do you see yourself?
Hopefully, still working in artificial intelligence. I do love it. So that's certainly like something with AI. What that
Think you'll
looks
be
like in
working
particular.
working in it, or do you think you'll be working for it?
Yeah, that's really the right question to ask. I don't know. Either way, I'm okay with it. Like if I'm gonna get plugged into the matrix or something similar, I think I'm okay. I think I'm all right with that. Um, but seriously, yeah, anything with artificial intelligence. Do I want to start another company? I'm not sure. Maybe. Um, I definitely know a lot more now. I would definitely run the company from day one as something that would be sustainable for myself. Um, but that's not also necessarily the only potential option for me. So just something with AI, talking about AI, learning as much as I can about AI, and having some semblance of work life balance. I love spending time with my family, so if there's a scenario in which I can do that and do what I love at the same time, I'll be happy.
Awesome. And if people want to check you out, find out more about Matt Berman, where should they go?
Yeah, search YouTube, Matthew Berman. Maybe you can just drop a link in the description, youtube.com/Matthew Berman.
Fantastic. Thanks for jumping on, Matt.
Thank you, Elijah. Good talk.
Great chat.